Here are the letters the Romans gave us. And here are the countries whose languages derive from Latin. Today they cover half the world. As for the ancient Romans, the boundaries of their state encompassed their entire civilization.
Sheesh.
The Roman peace, or Pax Romana, serves as the first example of globalization. Let's take a walk across 12 centuries of the Roman history. And yes, those numerals are also a Roman legacy.
The Age
What
of
is Rome?
Kings.
A city on 7 hills, capital of Italy. But that is today. And 2,000 years ago, there it is. Another 1,000 years ago, there. A tiny tribal settlement of the Latins by the river Tiber. How did this manage to conquer the world? First, it was lucky with its neighbors. To the north, the Etruscans of modern Tuscany, a mysterious people whose language has never been fully deciphered. To the south, Greek colonies. These peoples all traded with each other. It was at the crossroads of their trade routes that Rome appeared. From the very start, Rome has been an open city, a safe haven for outcasts, murderers, runaway slaves. Rome offered migrants a unique opportunity to become fully fledged citizens.
Okay.
This will make Rome the largest metropolitan city of the ancient world. The Romans themselves believed they were descendants of refugees from the Middle East who had survived the Trojan War. Romulus and Remus were the great-grandchildren of the Trojan hero Aeneas. Nursed by an Italian she-wolf, the brothers quarreled where to site the future world capital. Romulus killed Remus, gave his
As
name
one
to
does.
the city, and became its first ruler. As legend has it, there were 7 kings, each of which enjoyed a lengthy reign and left.
It's good that he did that, because I would much rather study the Romans than the Remans. You know what I'm saying? Just out of pure branding ability, like that was a good. I'm glad he won.
Some beneficial legacy, a calendar, a sewer system, or the Capitolium, a temple to the senior god Jupiter. Much of what the Romans later became famous for, aqueducts, bridges, perhaps even the gladiatorial games, were borrowed from the Etruscans. This people had invented the Latin alphabet by adapting the Greek letters for their own needs. It's not surprising that their last kings were Etruscan. Rome borrowed her military and government organization from them, while
so they
maintaining
yoinked.
a stern patriarchal simplicity. In 509, Rome was shaken by a sex scandal. The son of King Tarquin the Proud raped the chaste Lucretia. Tarquin was expelled, making
Yikes.
him the last king of Rome.
So they got rid of kings.
The Romans decided to prevent any such concentration of power ever again. From 509 onwards, they elected 2 consuls to serve a year apiece instead of a monarch.
Why were all of their leaders Voldemort? Is my first question. Maybe my only question. Why did they choose the Dark Lord himself to be every Roman leader?
The consuls were controlled by
Don't
the
say his
Senate.
name.
This consisted of 300 fathers,
Huge
patres
ones.
in Latin, hence the term patricians. Those not so lucky to be born into the right families joined the plebs. Even if they were as rich as patricians, they were not entitled to take up positions in the state. It is in
Plebs.
the 200-year struggle for these rights that the republic, literally meaning public thing, will be formed. The plebeians would make up the backbone of the army, and to have their own way, they would threaten the fledgling state with emigration to a neighboring hill. Each time, the
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, this is this is subs and non-subs whenever an ad plays. Look at the glorious togas.
even if they were as rich as patricians, they were not entitled to take up positions in the state. It is in the 200-year struggle for these rights that the republic, literally meaning public thing, will be formed. The plebeians would make up the backbone of the army, and to have their own way, they would threaten the fledgling state with emigration to a neighboring hill. Each time, the scared patricians caved in, introducing, for instance, the special position of a representative or tribune of the plebeians. These had the right to veto any decisions of the consuls. One of the main achievements of the struggle was the publication of the first written laws. By 287,
That is a progress, but I've seen this pattern. I've been watching quite a few history videos lately, And there's this pattern over and over where like there's some dominant power or king or dynasty or whatever. And then they get weak enough that the public finally demands concessions. And they're like, all right, you know what we'll give you? We're going to give you a voice on the council of the advisory council. Or what? They always give them something on some system. And then the second that body votes against the king or like tries to actually stop them, the king dissolves it or whatever the leadership power is. They ignore it or they dissolve it. And then eventually later there's like a revolution or a war. But like the first time, the plebs always fall for this. And it never seems to actually work. I haven't seen it work once in all the different... Atrioc when he gives the ACLU the whiteboard. Yeah, go read that whiteboard. See how effective it's been. That's like fucking #1 item is play Inscription or some shit, bro. I don't know.
BC, the plebeians had achieved complete equality of rights with the patricians. The unity of Rome found its best expression in the formula Senatus Populusque Romanus, the Senate and the Roman people, which still adorns.
That's what that stands for?
Rome.
I did not know that was what that stands for. Interesting. I thought it was like a military thing.
In 390 BC, the history of Rome could have come to an end. The city was unexpectedly taken by the Gauls. The guard dogs had sensed no danger, for which they would be crucified every year since. Geese awoke the last protectors of the...
I'm sorry, what? That's horrendous. The guard dogs didn't smell the Gauls, so they crucified them? And then years later, we're still crucifying them? I mean, I guess if you can't smell the French coming, something's wrong. But
Capitoline Hill fortress instead, saving Rome from complete destruction. The shaken Romans conducted a military reform. The Roman legion was divided into manipuli, making it more mobile in battle. The Roman army spent the next 100 years in constant wars. Instead of simply imposing a tribute on the conquered, the Romans would enter into a treaty of alliance with them, and the loyal allies supply Rome with a never-ending stream of recruits. Thanks to this, the Roman legions were able to stand their ground in battle with the most efficient fighting force of the time, the all-conquering Macedonian phalanx, led by Pyrrhus, a relative of Alexander the Great. The last stronghold of resistance in Italy, the Greek city of Tarentum, then hired the most costly and celebrated contemporary warlord of the time to defend against Roman expansion. Having conquered Tarentum and reached Sicily, Rome now had to take on a much more dangerous adversary.
Wait, they just skipped over that. I wanted to hear about that. This city took all of their money and bought the most expensive and best general in the world and then got rolled? What battle is that? That sounds cool as shit. Should have paid for soldiers. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, how good could a general be back then that he's worth all the money, dude? What is he going to say if you don't have a... I feel like having a bigger army... I mean, obviously, we know about what's going to happen with fucking Hannibal, but I feel like in general, you want the stuff. It's like a big esports hire that flops. This is a good Venn diagram of chat because I like that metaphor. It is like that. It's like when they fucking spend a huge signing bonus on somebody. Yeah, like LeBron. It's LeBron and the Lakers, bro. He's just, okay, all right, let's get a good system going before we try to bring in a superstar.
Carthage, lord of the Mediterranean. The Romans called the Phoenicians of Carthage Punics, hence the Punic Wars. They were fought over the next 100 years. In 149 BC, Rome had taken the greater part of Punic territory and that of their allies, but after each defeat, the trading power of Carthage would rapidly recover. Senator Cato the Elder began to finish every speech with the same refrain: Carthage must be destroyed, and so it was done. The city was wiped out, all of its population was enslaved, allegedly plowing salt into the earth as an eternal curse.
Jesus.
Also in 146 BC, the Romans...
Is that what happens in part 3? I guess they're doing it super fast. That's spoilers, bro. Oh my God, spoilers. I can't believe they spoiled a 1,000-year-old war. Oh, boo, dude. Wow. History spoilers.
Wiped out another city, Corinth, making Greece and Macedonia Roman provinces. Rome appropriated the colossal riches of the disintegrating empire of Alexander, but the patriarchal simplicity of Rome succumbed to the sophisticated Greek culture. Greek became, in effect, a second state language. The Roman nobility busied itself learning new words, hexameter, history, rhetoric. Cicero, the most famed orator of Rome, would come to model his speeches on those of the Greek Demosthenes. However, across this immense territory, full rights were only afforded to the Romans themselves. Even other Italians, the majority of the military, had no citizenship rights. These would demand equality, declare war, and win the right to take part in managing the state. This was a total game changer. While ancient Greece remained a collection of squabbling city-states, Rome gradually extended citizenship rights to the conquered, laying down the basis for an empire.
I see. So that's the good times.
Having conquered half the world, Rome fell victim to globalization. Cheap grain and an inflow of unpaid slave labor bankrupted the small farmers. These rushed into the cities and joined the ranks of the proletariat, those who have nothing to lose except their own offspring. At the same time, the rich grew 100 times richer, having bought land from the ruined peasants for a song. Previously united, the Senate and the Roman people split into two hostile camps. The tribunes of the people, the Gracchi brothers, would try to reconcile them. They proposed granting excess public lands to the impoverished peasants and suggested free distributions of bread to the poor. The disgruntled senators decided to suppress the Gracchi movement by force, killing the brothers and several thousand of their allies. Rome was gripped by civil wars. Social mobility for the proletariat was offered by...
To be fair, though, you should never take anything from rich people, right? We can agree on that. If there's one thing we can agree on collectively, it's like once they've got the wealth, they should be able to keep it in perpetuity, and not even a sliver of it should escape their clutches. I think that should be a baseline that we build off. We can obviously debate the other facts of that, but like, that is a baseline.
Like Gaius Marius, a popular general, he began enrolling the proletariat into the army with a promise of a grant of land at the end of service. This would make the legions personally devoted to their generals. In 49 BC, two outstanding generals fought over Rome. Gnaeus Pompeius had won the eastern provinces for Rome, including restless Judea, cleared the Mediterranean of piracy, defeated Spartacus' slave revolt, and justifiably added the title Great to his name. Gaius Julius Caesar had conquered Gaul. Nowadays, they would call it genocide.
Shit.
He butchered 1 million Gauls and enslaved as many more. He went on to defeat the Germans and then invaded Britain.
Jesus.
According to the law,
Killing 1 million people in a time of swords and shields is fucking crazy. That's crazy. That is such systemic day in, day out, arm get tired brutality. 1 million people with fucking swords and that's crazy.
a general had to dismiss his legions before returning to Rome, and in return have his moment of glory, a triumphal entry into the capital to the applause of the
I thought the population of Rome was 1 million, which is like the biggest city in the world at the time, right? Isn't Rome the only city that had 1 million at the time? So that's crazy.
Caesar performed a hitherto unseen maneuver. He refused to submit to the Senate, and having crossed the Italian border, the river Rubicon, marched his legions to Rome. It would take him several years to defeat Pompey the Great and his other rivals, pitting Roman legions against each other. In the process, Caesar annexed new territories, and gave Cleopatra the Egyptian throne. After a romantic cruise along the Nile, she would give birth to Caesarion, or Little Caesar. On his return, Caesar would add Imperator, or Emperor, to his name, title originally meaning victorious commander, and gain control of all
Long live
political
Caesar!
positions. Consul, tribune of the people, and dictator.
You guys say the pizza guy? So stupid. Everyone's just very pizza. Yes, Caesarion is the one that invented Little Caesar's pizza. And that is how Italy gets its wealth today.
Rumor spread that Caesar wanted to declare himself king. Conspiracy was brewing in the Senate, and Caesar was assassinated. Caesar left his wealth,
Yikes!
quite unexpectedly for all concerned, to his grandnephew, 19-year-old Gaius Octavius. This Octavian immediately joined in the power struggle. In 31 BC, he defeated his last rival, the warlord Mark Antony, who likewise had an affair with Cleopatra.
Jesus.
The lovers would take their own lives. Octavian was left sole ruler of a vast territory.
So what I don't get is like, all right, all the senators gang up and they stab Caesar in the back, Ides of March, they kill him. We've gotten rid of the emperor. And then they just follow his will. And now he leaves all his power to his grandnephew. Let's give it to him. I don't... Like, why don't they just kill the nephew too? Oh, not all of them did that? I see. Octavius killed the conspirators. I see. It was kind of like ambush. Well, that's extra dumb. Damn, that was their big plan? We're going to kill Caesar knowing for a fact that we don't have control of the military or the other people. Everyone loves him. That's crazy.
Julius Caesar ruled for 4 years. Octavian, assuming the title Augustus,
They just kinda
meaning
winged it.
Venerable or the Great, ruled for an endless...
Ari? Thought she knocked.
43 years. He didn't
Jeez.
formally abolish the Republic. He simply took control of all possible positions, making...
Kind of funny that Caesar ruled for 4 years and gets all of the credit and glory in history. His grandnephew ruled his entire fucking life afterward, and nobody cares.
his power almost absolute. But he modestly called himself Princeps, the first senator. And even though skirmishes with barbarians continued along the borders, inside them the period of Pax Romana set in, a period of peace and stability that was to last 200 years.
Sheesh!
The empire experienced an economic upswing. Bread was distributed for free to 200,000 people. On Augustus' orders,
Damn.
a 500-meter basin was dug at the very center of the capital, where 3,000 gladiators mimicked sea battles on real seagoing vessels.
That'd be so hype to watch. I gotta be honest with you. An actual live sea battle in a coliseum, that'd be sick as fuck. The SKT of their day. That's how you get hit with a whaling spear in the audience. Well, that's the risk you take. It's like catching a fly ball. I could go for some Roman bread right now. Why don't we still do that? Why don't we do free Roman bread to all citizens? It'd be hype. Joe Biden.
Rome, construction was booming. Concrete and multi-story districts were growing. Augustus had to introduce height regulations, limiting skyscrapers to 6 floors. And still the citizens were unhappy. They complained about traffic jams, pollution of the waters of the Tiber, and high rents. The golden century of poetry dawned. Maecenas,
Been
a
there.
quasi-minister of culture, allocated special grants to praise the value of the state. Temples would be built in the honor of Augustus, and even a month was named after him. Thus, the cult of the Roman emperors was emerging. They would come to be venerated alongside Mars and Jupiter.
This is pretty funny, right? Because There used to be 10 months and it made sense, like December, like it's all the months were lined up with the number, but then they just shoved 2 months in there and now it's all off. I think that's really funny. Yeah, October is not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, July for Julius and August for Augustus. I believe those are the two that got added, right? Why the fuck didn't you just put them at the end? That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know, but the fact that we still use it globally, basically, to this day is pretty crazy. That's like crazy hype. That's influence. Why would you want your month associated with winter? I guess, yeah. If you're going to get a month, you don't want this shitty month at the end of the year. Everyone's sad and cold. But also, it's just hilarious that like, at the time, that must have seemed fucking crazy. Like, if you are living in a society with a very good, working, understandable 10-month system, and they're like, let's just shove 2 more. It would have been so confusing and annoying. Imagine imagine they added a Trump month now. We'd have to redo everything. It would be so annoying. Oh, it would be so annoying, dude. Trumptober, baby.
After Augustus' power became hereditary, the senatorial opposition has left us vivid portraits of the first emperors. Suspicious Tiberius unleashed terror under the pretext of the law on treason. Under this law, any action could be deemed offensive. It was enough not to sufficiently praise the emperor or pay at a brothel with coins bearing his portrait. In distant Judea, a preacher...
They got arrested for going to a brothel and not using the emperor's coin when buying a sex worker. That's crazy. That is a crazy reason to jail somebody. Why do you want them to be thinking about you while they do that anyway?
Refusing to worship the emperor as God, was crucified. Caligula wanted to make his horse a consul. A scholar and gourmet, Claudius, was too occupied with feasting and the reforming of the alphabet to keep an eye on court intrigue. One of his wives, Messalina, was giving women of easy virtue a run for their money in the brothels, and the other, Agrippina, poisoned Claudius with mushrooms to enthrone her son from another marriage, Nero. Nero, believing that he was a born actor, not an emperor, would later kill his own mother, and then allegedly the apostles Peter and Paul. Then he again allegedly set fire to Rome so as to read the verses on the fall of Troy during the blaze. He would accuse the first Christians of arson and initiated their persecution. And finally, he took his own life. Most details of this era are known from Tacitus, a historian and senator who observed the degradation of republican institutions.
Yeah, true method actor.
The fate of the empire was now decided not so much by the Senate as by the Praetorian Guards, the emperor's personal security force, created back in the times of Augustus. These suffocated Tiberius with a cushion, slayed Caligula by the sword, and hailed Claudius emperor. In all fairness, at the same time, the empire grew, expanding into new territories. Roman legions conquered part of Britain, where they founded a town called Londinium. Provinces were given a transparent taxation system, and the non-Roman nobility began to enter the Senate en masse. A grandchild of an Italian peasant, Vespasian Flavius would become the founder of the next dynasty. Vespasian and Titus, suppressing the uprising in Judea, committed genocide, again according to modern-day, not Roman standards, and reduced the Temple of Jerusalem to nothing but the Wailing Wall. On a lighter note, Vespasian had a jolly good Roman predisposition. He taxed the collectors of urine at the public toilets. And Titus, the destroyer of Jerusalem,
on a lighter note from genocide, you got taxed when you took a shit. That's crazy. You really got to keep it moving.
After a splendid triumph, he opened the Colosseum for the people. Titus would be called the love and consolation of humankind. And after such festivities,
when's Commodus?
Visited the public treasury. Vesuvius destroyed Pompeii. Plague devastated half Italy. And Titus became a god.
Wow, they're still at the height yet. That's crazy.
The 2nd century would go down in history as the era of the good emperors. Trajan was considered by his contemporaries the best emperor ever. Rome became a million-strong city, and the empire reached its largest extent. Rome connected a new territories via a network of paved roads. This system still determines the transport map of Europe. After Trajan's conquest, Hadrian busied himself with defense, erecting massive fortifications in Britain and between the Rhine and the Danube. Pantheon was built in Rome, the first temple to be topped by a massive dome, a real architectural sensation of the day, dedicated to all the gods. Hadrian would also include his lover among them, the young Antinius. More of his images have survived than of any Roman. The last good emperor, the throned philosopher, Marcus Aurelius, would spend most of his reign on military expeditions. In between battles, he wrote his manifesto for Stoic philosophy.
Oh, the goat? Oh, the goat, dude? Oh, Marcus Aurelius the goat? He out here getting it done? He's writing books that I need to understand before I go live to stream on Twitch? I need to study what a Roman emperor thinks about his day before I go live to play Stormgate?
It was under Marcus Aurelius' son, Commodus, that the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, came to an end.
Yikes!
He preferred a gladiator's glory to the affairs of...
He's crazy. I mean, that is a big bag fumble. Commodus. I told this when I was watching the longer Roman documentary. They talked about how Commodus came to power, wanted to do a bunch of fun gladiator games to get the people to love him. The Senate told him they couldn't afford it. Like the treasury was out. And he said, don't worry, I've got a solution. And then his solution was to tax the Senate. So they just took it out of all of their pocket. Like he just took all of their money and then spent it all on games. Which is like semi-based, but the problem is they're going to hate you for it. And then he became an actual gladiator himself.
State. Conspirators had the emperor strangled by a fellow fighter, the slave Narcissus. Rome sank into
Exactly. That'll happen.
The next 100 years brought a sequence of random emperors proclaimed by the army, taking their turn on the throne, were a liberated slave, a fortune seeker who bought the throne at an auction, General Punic descent who would place statues of the...
Someone bought the throne at an auction? I have to learn more about that. Emperor bought throne on auction, Rome. I've never heard of it. Didius Julianus, the Rome emperor who bought the imperial throne and paid with his life. That's crazy. The entire Roman Empire was once auctioned off to the highest bidder. Wait, that's crazy. Oh my God, it's a paywalled article. I have to learn more about this. This is crazy. Okay, wait. There's a Quora question on it. Okay. The Praetorian Guard sold the Roman Empire because they wanted money. The immensely rich Didius Julianus, who didn't have much money for. Oh, that's crazy. Damn. I mean, that checks out. What do you think would happen if we did that? Just straight up, like right now. I guess Elon Musk would be president. That's exactly what would happen. He would absolutely buy it. 100%.
The former enemy, Hannibal, all over the empire, a Syrian priest of the sun, and a former shepherd.
Mr. Beast? Do you think Mr. Beast is anywhere close to the wealth of Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg? No. Mr. Beast would not be able to win this bidding war. Isn't Elon no longer the richest person? He's the richest American, which is enough to win this. I assume we still have the rule where you can't. Bernard, could not win.
Who owed his popularity to his powerful physique. In 212, Emperor Caracalla, half North African, half Syrian.
I think Elon does have American citizenship. I'm like pretty sure he does. I know he's born in South Africa, but I think he's 100% an American citizen. You need to be born here? Really? You have to have been born here. George Washington born in Britain, so kind of fucked up. Kind of fucked up that our rules wouldn't apply to one of the goats, right?
Granted Roman citizenship to nearly all free subjects of the empire. The idea that you could be a Roman in Judea, in Africa, or any other corner of the empire at all might well be the main legacy of Rome still in use today. By mid-century,
there's precedent
Rome
for that not to be the
was already in
case.
midst of such a crisis that the whole provinces were starting to split off. The Gauls, for instance, proclaimed an empire of their own.
France!
Order would be restored by the son of a liberated slave, Diocletian. Having started his career as a soldier, he would end up an absolute monarch, an astonishing example of social mobility.
That is crazy.
Diocletian split the empire into four, with four...
I guess it's impressive to be the son of a freed slave and rise to becoming emperor of all of Rome and conquer the stuff. But I want you guys to know that 50 Cent was born to a single mother with drug addiction and got shot 9 times and rose to becoming a $250 million net worth off of selling vitamin water. Okay? And friends with Eminem. So there's been greater rises.
Co-rulers at 4 capitals situated closer to the frontier. Rome lost its significance. The Senate became a town council. The country was now ruled by an army of officials personally reporting to the emperor. Thus, the ancient world, centered around the concept of a free community and free citizens, came to an end. From the princeps, the first senator, the emperor had become the dominus, a title by which slaves addressed their masters. The citizen became a subject, the warrior turned into a soldier, and the farmer a semi-serf. Diocletian himself resigned from the post of emperor 20 years later and went off to his estate to grow cabbages.
Pretty good way to end, other than getting
Diocletian's departure,
assassinated.
the co-rulers were fighting for power. Constantine, the future Saint Constantine the Great, emerging victorious. Before the crucial battle for Rome, he allegedly had a vision of a cross. After this, he made all religions equal. After 300 years of persecutions, the Christians came out of the catacombs and were now entitled to build churches alongside the temples of Augustus and Mars. Constantine would take the cross from Jerusalem to the new capital of the Roman Empire, Constantinople. Theodosius I would make Christianity...
It's almost, to me, it's crazy. Just as someone who's not religious, I'm just not religious. It's crazy to me the depth of the faith it would take to be persecuted by the dominant power for 300 years and still be like, I am 100% right that Jesus Christ is that dude. I don't know. I guess all religions have this story where, like, I think that's crazy. Just like gamers. I guess gamers are similar. We have been persecuted, even probably harder, I guess. I actually feel, you're right. Actually, I think about it. It's really not a big deal what religions have gone through compared to what modern day gamers have to endure. The slings and arrows we have to endure. Have you ever tried to play a game through lag? Have you ever tried to ignore a family dinner and then your parents say, just save it or pause it? and come out, but it's a live service game and you can't save it or pause it. Ever gone through that? I don't think you have. And so, or if you have, you know the true struggle.
The official religion and begin to destroy the ancient temples. He would also be the last emperor of a united Roman Empire. His sons split the empire into west and east. The eastern half would live another 1,000 years and is known to us as Byzantium. The western part would fall victim to the great migration of peoples. Rome, founded by migrants, would fall to the onslaught of a new wave of refugees. Ironically, the last ruler of Rome would be called Romulus.
Nah.
In modern Rome, not far from the Colosseum and the ruins of the Forum, there is a tomb. Its occupant was neither emperor nor senator, but a simple baker called Ulysses. Likely born a slave into a family of Greek migrants, he later entered into a bread supply contract with the capital and became so rich that he could build such a monument for himself and his wife. Before Rome, in ancient Egypt and elsewhere, or after Rome during the Middle Ages, a man would die in the same station in life as he had been born in. The life and career of Ulysses is an answer to the question of how Rome was able to create a global state that lasted over 1,000 years.
Be healthy.
Do you like...
Pretty hype. Pretty